What's up, Pursuit students? We are excited tonight. We are so glad that you are joining us. We are doing our first ever Pursuit Students After Dark. This is where we just tackle some real life, real world subjects from your point of view, how you're going through it, and we just want to hear from students. We just want this to be a conversation. We hope you hang out with us tonight. Listen, we are going to be live on YouTube. So we want to chat with you. We're going to have the chat box open. We want to hear from you. Myself, Pastor Jen, she's going to be there too. And we just want to be answering your questions in real time. But before we get started and dive into our questions, I want to start by introducing or letting each of our students kind of introduce themselves with their name and what grade they're in. So we'll start right over here.
My name is Dakota Whitman, a.k.a. Jiggles, and I'm in 12th grade.
Wasadid. I'm Kenny. I'm in the 12th grade. Yeah, that's right. All right.
Hey, I'm Megan. I'm in the 12th grade.
Hey, I'm Josie, and I'm in the 7th grade.
All right, so we got 4 of our Pursuit students here who are a part of our ministry, and we're just really excited about what God's doing here at Pursuit Church, but just what God's doing in general. I think throughout this entire pandemic and what has been 2020, I see God moving in amazing ways, and I believe that God really wants to speak a word into your life tonight, not through me, the pastor, but through these students. So we've come up with some questions. We're just going to kind of toss these around at random, and we're going to we're just going to kind of dive into these and chew through them and see what comes out of it. So make sure as we're doing that, if you've got something you want to say, hit us up in the chat. Let us know what it is. And so we're just going to get started. So I want to start with this first question. And Megan, I'm going to start with you, if that's cool. So Megan, 12th grader. Megan, what major problem do you think that young people face today that may be different than other generations have faced?
I feel like social media has a big impact on our lives, and like people at school have also an impact because from my experience, like when we go to school, like there's not a lot of people talking about how God moves and what God does. Everybody just kind of shuts it down. You talked about in your message about how the pledge has been taken down. Well, at my school, we used to have the prayer every morning. And one year, we had a mother call in and say, I don't want that anymore.
Yeah.
And so it kind of shut down the prayer. And when you're at school and you're like a high schooler, you go through like, okay, if I talk about God, are people going to judge me? Are they going to look at me different? Are they going to not be my friends? And so like when you're in high school, you just kind of keep your opinions to yourself. It's kind of like politics. A lot of people don't talk about politics, but a lot of people do. And so it just works like that.
Yeah. Kenny, what do you think? What do you think is an issue that your generation, as a senior, that you're facing that maybe others before you didn't face?
So I feel like this generation, more than any generation before us, experiences more self-doubt and like a self-loathing or whatever. Like you look at it and you think like, what generation before us has ever dealt with this much depression or has this many people with suicidal thoughts and actions? Like nobody, it wasn't really talked about before, or it was just kind of swept under the rug. And now this generation, we have a lot of that. And yeah.
What do you guys agree? Do you think that this generation faces a lot of self-doubt? I see Josie, you're shaking your head. Why do you think that, Josie?
Most definitely, I think that I agree with Kenny, and I also agree with Megan, because I feel like for me, I also deal with a lot of people. I know I'm only in middle school, but I deal with a ton of people coming at me because I am Christian, and I post on social media that I'm at church. I post about the youth group, like come join us and everything. And I feel like that can also lead to a bunch of people bullying, anxiety, and that can lead to a lot of self-doubt. And I know I have anxiety, and that can also lead to me doubting myself sometimes. And I feel like we really have to deal with that with social media, going to school, like she said, we used to have prayer time in elementary school, and it just stopped all of a sudden. Like, kids just started not doing it. They would just stand there and not say anything.
Yeah.
And it really stopped.
So you feel like there's sometimes when you, as a young person, when you're in, your schools or you're in your social organizations, it sometimes comes with judgment
Yeah.
that you're a Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you face that? What do you think on this, Dakota?
In my opinion, like, I agree more with Kenny, because really the major problem that I see a lot of kids having is just a lack of confidence in whatever we're doing. And of course, everyone wants to have success and everyone wants to live the best life, but we all also care about what other people think of us.
Yeah.
And I think the problem is that we as kids, we look up to adults, and adults seem to always look down on us, and they don't seem to have very high hopes for what we have in the future. And that in turn just ends up backfiring on them, because once we grow up and we end up being a part of society, we're going to have completely manipulated points of view on whatever we think or what we do.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point that you bring up around, maybe how adults project on Gen Zers, right? And I think there's all kinds of things that get projected on this generation that does create self-doubt, self-worth. Am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Am I this? Am I that? I mean, do you guys, Megan, do you see this? Do you feel any of this like in your walk?
I mean, yeah, I feel like I agree with the parents' statement and like the adults, because some parents like do look down on like kids like us, because when they look at us, they see other people and they're like, okay, well, they're acting like that, so our kids or the kids around us are going to act like that. And so they don't give us, I don't think are given enough recognition for what Generation Z has brought to the table of the nation.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we have helped out a lot, and there are a lot of different movements that have started because of Gen Z. And so when we start those, it's kind of like, okay, but you look at us like we're still kids, but I feel like we have started to mature more because of everything that has gone down in our nation and everything we have to go through.
Yeah. So it's really easy. I think, I hear you saying, I feel like we get stereotyped a particular way, and that may not be the truth. So let me ask you, I'm going to come back to you, Kenny. So as a Christian, as a young person and a Christian, how do you deal with this, man? Like, how do you get past the self-worth, self-doubt thing? Like, what does that look like in real life? It's a tough question.
Yeah, so I'm probably not the best person to ask for this, but what I try to do is I try to think of myself and have respect for myself, because if I can't have respect for myself, then nothing is really gonna come out of it. And I try to go to God, read about a lot of the prophets, read about like what is it, Elijah, who went into the cave because of depression and everything, and think like, if God can use a man like that who has such a low look upon himself, and even like David went through his bouts, and if a man after God's own heart can go through that, then I should be able to work through it. God will be able to work through me and in me and help me get over this.
Man, that's good. That's good. The thing, you called out the story of Elijah. I love that, because when Elijah got into that place, he was coming off of the greatest victory he'd ever had. He came off the highest high he'd ever had in his life into the lowest low, but God never left him. And so, man, I love what you had to say about that. So I want to jump back. So Josie, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to start with you this time. So you guys talked a little bit about social media. Obviously, everything that we do, for the most part today, is done on social media. It's a part of everyday life. It's a great thing. It can also be a negative thing, depending on how it's used. I think we all know that. But how does social media influence the way that this generation thinks? How does it influence the way you think?
Well, I post a lot about my faith and everything, and I see on the internet sometimes that kids like say, "Oh yeah, I'm Christian," but then they go and post things that aren't Christian. And I remember you talking to us one time, and you said that sometimes you guys can just log on to your phone, and all of a sudden there will be a post about drugs, gangs, and everything like that, and that's all on the internet. Like there's nothing one person can do about that. It's just there. There's nothing you can say. There's nothing you can do. But one thing we can do is what I try to do is I'm not scared to post about my faith, and I try to post as much as I can about my faith and about how Jesus has completely changed my life and how he can change yours no matter if you're a sinner or if you've been a Christian your whole entire life and you're just scared to post that no matter what, don't be scared to post because it could change somebody's day. One little post, one little comment could change somebody's entire day.
That's right.
So,
And so this positivity, right?
yeah,
It's just putting positivity out there where there seems to be a void of positivity.
yeah.
So one of the things, and I'm going to kind of go over to Dakota for this, but one of the things we've been talking about in the student ministry is a little bit about how in social media, right, AI, artificial intelligence, like it literally, I can talk about brushing my teeth, to you, and then the next time I log on to Instagram, there'll be a Colgate commercial, or ad. Like the phones are listening, right? Social media is a part of what we do. So, but it's really socially designed, and I think in a lot of ways it's designed to sow division. So whatever you say or whatever you stop or you pause on, even if you're not into it, if you pause on it, it begins to throw that into your feed, right? So how do you think social media is shaping this generation, and what does it look like as a young Christian? Like, how do you navigate this? It's tough.
I'm not on social media a whole lot, but whenever I am on there, I'm sort of just like, I'm trying to focus on something. It's like I'm in and out like as quick as I can, but sometimes like when I see people that are just acting stupid, in my opinion, it just, I try and tune it out as much as I can, but that's just me being ignorant.
Yeah.
And I know that ignorance is bliss and all that, but I feel like there probably is something I should be doing. But at the same time, I just like letting them do their own thing and just separating myself away from that.
So I think you're definitely unique not being on social media. So many in this generation, like, and it's not just this generation, just people in society in general, like we're tied to our phones. We seem to constantly, I know I struggle with it, right? Getting off of social media monopolizes a lot of my time more than it should. Was this a choice for you? Was this not a choice for you? Like, can you talk through that?
Oh yeah, it was a choice for me. Like I at first I had it, and then I saw it really bothersome just to like make stories on Snapchat, and like I don't think I've ever posted anything on Instagram, but I like scrolling in there, seeing like some people post like drawings that they do, some people post like memes and stuff like that on there, and I like think that those are funny, so I like checking that out sometimes. But other than that, like I just don't. I'm just not really into it.
So for you, it was a choice to say, hey, I'm going to separate myself from social media. Was there anything that led you to make that choice in terms of, did you see it becoming a negative in your life and you made that choice, or it was just a choice in general, that's just not my thing?
Well, like I looked at all the things that I could be doing throughout the day, and I thought I could be playing games right now. I could be studying. I'm not actually going to be studying. I could be doing something else, and then just like, and it seemed more like it was a job or something.
Yeah, like
just
a
having
distraction.
to post and stuff like that.
Like
yeah.
a distraction. So Megan, I think you're on social media, right?
I am on social
You're
media.
on social media. So this is a really good question. So when you think about social media, all the things we talked about, AI, is throwing things in your feed, you're obviously on it a decent amount, right? How do you think social media is shaping the generation? And what is it, I mean, as a Christian, what does it look like in your life?
Well, I feel like it can go back to like what Kenny said about self-confidence, because I will say I do spend a lot of time on my feed, but like not like just looking through posts. I like make sure I like when my like page is like pretty.
Yeah.
Like I want it to look,
Curated.
yeah, it's called aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
I like when it's like that. And it makes me happy. And I'm like, okay, like, do other people think this? And like, I hate having those thoughts because, like, okay, am I going to get likes? Are people going to like how it looks? Does it look pretty? And like, I have a theme for my Instagram. And so it all ties together. And one of the hardest thing was for me when I started working for the church. I saw that everybody was like, the other people that worked here like would post about it. And it took me, I think, a good couple weeks to start posting about it because like I had told people, but with just like our generation, it was hard for me to put out there that I was working at a church. I am a believer in God. Like I had talked about it before that I was a believer in God with like different types of people, but I never really posted on my social media that I was a believer of God. And so when I started, I just felt relief. And now I probably post 2 times a week of stuff I do here at the church. And then every Sunday I post, you should go watch. And I think I've gotten probably 3 or 4 people to go ahead and watch a Sunday service because I asked them to, if they
Yeah.
wanted to, because they don't have, like, if they're in college, they don't really have a church to go to. And so they just watch church online.
So you've seen like the tangible evidence of how God can use social media to be a great thing.
Yeah, I have seen that because the other day we celebrated, we got so many views or so many followers on our Instagram page, and we have seen how social media has brought people to Pursuit, people to God, because Pursuit Church, we post like our sermon clips, and there's a lot of people that like when they're scrolling, it pops up and they're like, okay, we'll watch it. And when they watch it, they start watching more. I mean, that's what I did with our feed. When I first
Yeah.
started going, I went on there and I saw one video and I was like, oh, okay, I'll click. And so I clicked and you start watching more and you kind of get into a hole. But I mean, is it a bad hole to be on Pursuit Church or a church?
So Josie, I don't know how active, and I'm gonna pass over to Josie. How active are you? I know that you're on the younger end of our panel here. How active are you on social media, or not really?
I mean, on my Instagram, I'm pretty active. Snapchat, not as much. But on Instagram, I can definitely relate to what you went through because I used to post a ton about just my life, and I never really posted about God. But when I started to come out in my faith on Instagram and I started posting and I started going live and reading stuff from the Bible, I remember my very first live, it got taken down from my page because I guess people didn't like that I was posting about my faith. So they kind of like reported it. But that didn't really stop me. I still post a ton on my page about Pursuit Church, about my faith, how God can change your life in just a second if you give your life to Him.
Yeah.
And I post a ton of that, and that really helps. But I really just don't go on Instagram like a ton. I don't really scroll. I just mainly go to my page, post, and then I'm off.
So let me ask you this question: do you feel like that as a society, as a culture, doesn't matter if you're a teenager or not, do you think that we're addicted to likes?
Definitely.
Why do you think that?
I think that a ton. Not really for myself. I don't really care if somebody, like, of course I'm going to go check if somebody commented on my page or something like that. Because who wouldn't? Somebody commented, you're not going to go see it. But I can definitely agree with, because I have some friends that are like so addicted to their phones and what people think of what they post, that they'll spend hours every day on one little post just to make sure it's perfect. And if somebody likes it, they get upset if somebody gets more likes than them. So I can definitely think that our generation, even though I'm not really in the generation, but I can definitely think that we can be addicted to how many likes we get.
Kenny, is being addicted to likes? Do you agree? Do you think that we're a culture addicted to likes?
Yeah, I sort of fell into that trap when I first got into high school, and then a lot later. And I'm kind of going through like a a remodeling of my life, I guess, because I fell into this social media trap and it was rending my relationship with God. And now I'm just trying to mend that. I'm trying to get closer with Him and everything. So I'm trying to just change everything that I do. Uh, like I took down all of my posts or whatever and everything that I did to try and like remake myself and sort of fix myself towards God, you know?
How can being addicted to likes be detrimental to our lives?
Because you start to look for affirmation in others instead of affirmation from God and affirmation within yourself. And the reality there is that God always loves us and He's always there for us. We don't have to look for love in others.
That's right. Man, that could be a sermon. That's good, Kenny. That's good. All right, so I'm gonna jump back over to you, Dakota. If that's cool. So, what draws you closer to God more than anything else? Like, when do you feel closest to God?
I think honestly, when I'm at church with other people who are also following in God, because then there's just nothing but like positive energy there. There's just everyone's there rejoicing for the same reason. Everyone's celebrating for the same reason. Nobody's distracted by what's going on outside, even if the sermon is focused on what's going on outside. It just everyone could just like sit there with like, and like even if we don't agree with each other, like, but we all know one thing, and that is like God's real and He's out there.
So, if you could say one thing to somebody that's never experienced the love of Christ, maybe they're a non-believer, maybe they're an atheist, maybe they just, weren't brought up and knowing who Jesus was, maybe they never even heard the name Jesus. You said the thing that brings you closer to God is when you're around other believers. But if you had one thing that you could say to someone who doesn't know the love of God, what would you tell them? Like, why is it for you? What would you say to somebody?
Well, like I'd want to like familiarize myself with them, because like before I went to Pursuit, and even while I went to Pursuit in the very beginning, like I didn't like God, and I remember like I hated Him because I thought that, well, maybe if He is real, then why did He do all this stuff for me? Why am I suffering because of this? Why did this happen? Why did that happen? And now I'm just thinking, I'm glad it happened, because that stuff that happened in the past is what shaped me into what I am right now.
So what changed that for you? You said when for a long time in your life, and anybody that don't know Dakota's story, you should catch him in the hallway or make sure to find him. You're probably not going to find him on social media, but you should find him. And I know his heart. I know he'd share his testimony with you. He's got an awesome testimony. But you said even initially when you were here in Pursuit Students, like you were still just really angry with God because there's some things in your life that you feel like, and they were difficult. What changed that?
I think what it was it wasn't like an instantaneous change. It was more like a slow, like peeling away at the layers that were left on top. Like I was focused on how everything is changing now and what I think is going for the better. And I was thinking about what could be better in the future. And then, of course, there was the one day it just cracked was the day my grandmother died. And for some reason, I just felt this strange sense of peace. Like I loved her, and she was like one of the greatest people in my world. And I felt at peace because like I knew that she was in a better place. And like I guess it was my goal to one day see her again in heaven or something. And after that, then I thought, okay, maybe I'll start paying attention more. Maybe I'll start like looking at what's going on and trying to do what everyone else is doing. And then I think that the day it really got, like I was there in the presence of God the first time I noticed the presence of God was whenever I went to Forward Con. I think it was 2017, 2018 or something like that. It was a while ago. And it was crazy because it was just like thousands of kids that were all celebrating all together. And Reggie Dabb spoke,
Yeah.
stuff like that, basically.
So that's such a powerful story. And, so God came to you as a father and a comforter in a time of need when your grandmother passed, and you truly felt the comfort of God, which led you to lean in and start to look for God more. And I think that's a powerful story. So if you could tell somebody that was a non-believer just one thing, just one piece of advice or something that God showed you, what would you tell them in this moment?
I guess I would say that if there is no God, then what else is there? Because I know that we're on this planet for a reason. And like, even if we did start out from a little like piece of DNA on a rock or something like that and eventually evolve into what we are now, how'd that DNA get there?
Yeah,
Or something like that.
that's good. That's good. What do you think, Kenny? So, kind of the same question, right? Like, just kind of walk us through. If you could say one thing to a kid that just is struggling right now, or doesn't feel the peace or love of God, maybe doesn't even know God, like, what would you tell them?
All right. I would tell them that you can't have happiness from within or self peace without God, you know? Um, and that feeling that you get and that little voice in the back of your head whenever you're sort of doubting everything, doubting why you're here, the little thing that kind of tells you that you matter a little bit, that thing that's fighting you, that's not your conscious or anything, that's God. That's that little whisper, you know? And he's always there. He's always been there. And if you don't think that you matter, God does, you know? That's kind of my whole spiel if you guys haven't caught on yet.
Yeah,
But
that's really good. Megan, from your perspective, maybe just talking to a student right now that's kind of at the end of their rope, like, you know, it's 2020. Things haven't obviously been awesome in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, it has been awesome. I think God's moving in a tremendous way. But I think there are a lot of young people right now that are really struggling for all kinds of reasons that we talk about here at Pursuit Students all the time. I think we're pretty open about it. But what would you say to that student that is kind of at the end of their rope, that's just struggling? What would you say to them? What do you believe that God would have them know about Him?
I feel like it's just like one of the biggest things is that like even though all these bad things are happening, he isn't punishing us. It's just what's happening right now, and later on in the future things will get better. But everything a person can go through is not a punishment by God because he is not a bad God. He's not a punishing God. I mean, if we do stray, he lets go a little bit and lets us see how it is without him.
Hmm.
And so when we see that little bit without him, I mean, like Dakota said, he went through a hard time. I went through a hard time. We've all been through our moments that we are not living in God. And so when we go through those hard moments, we see what is actually happening, and what we actually need to do is to turn to him and to pray and to just let him work in us in the ways that we don't think he needs to. Because like when we look at him and we're like, okay, we're being punished, like this is our fault, like we did something bad, so he's punishing us. He's not. God will never punish you for no reason, and he won't punish you for things that are so terrible. So you just have to let things work out and turn to him.
Yeah, that's good. Josie, what would you say? And again, I'm going to kind of go with the same line of questioning, but I want to repeat it. So if there's a student there tonight, boy or girl, doesn't matter how old, whether they're 12, whether they're 18, and they truly are like they're at the point where they don't feel their life is worth living, what do you want them to know that God wants to say to them right now in this moment?
I feel like I would talk to them about how, yeah, we can't see God and all of these bad things are happening to us. And I get a lot of questions that are like, oh, well, if your God is so real and he's so good, then why is he doing all of this bad stuff to us, like she said? And I always try to do my best in explaining that because it is hard to explain it. But I would tell them, even though these things are happening, God is going to, he's always going to be there beside you. Even though you can't see him, he's still there. And you just got to put your faith in him. You're not sad because you're just sad. Some days it's just you need the word of God. You need somebody to talk to you about God. And I would tell them that even though you can't see him and he's not like right next to you, he's still there. You just got to give your life to him.
Oh, that's good. That's good. All right, last question. Last question. I'm going to start, Kenny, I'm going to start with you. So, Kenny, like we've been talking a little bit the last few weeks in students about the fact that Christ is returning, right? I mean, that's one of the things when Christ died on the cross for our sins and he was resurrected on the third day. And he left and he said to his disciples and he said to many people that he saw after his resurrection that it's better that I go because if I go, I send the Holy Spirit, but I will be back. I'm going to return and Christ is going to return to earth. We don't know when it's going to be. It could be today. It could be tomorrow. It could be 1,000 years from now, but Christ is going to return. If you literally knew the day, if somehow you knew that in 3 or 4 months from now, that, you know, whatever, December 20th, Jesus Christ was coming back, and with Jesus comes judgment and the end of times. As a Christian, how would your life look differently right now?
So if I knew that Jesus is going to come 3 or 4 months from now, I would be one of those like guys that you see on the side of the road with the sign, but I wouldn't be like one of those angry guys with the sign.
And there's a difference.
Yeah, there is. I would be going around. I'd be trying to get as many people to know God and get in a personal relationship with God, because I feel like that just like if 3 or 4 months, that's not a lot of time for people to get to know God, and it's, you know, like I'd be trying to get them.
So you'd
to
be
where
more
they can
out
go.
there with your faith.
Mhm.
So
I
you would be aggressive with it.
so much more vocal about it.
Yeah. What about you, Dakota?
I'd say that like if I knew for a fact that Jesus was going to be here, I'd be at like a little bit of a standstill because on one thing, like I think, okay, he's going to do his thing. He might not need me. But on the other hand, it's Jesus Christ. I kind of want to be there wherever he is.
Yeah.
So, you know, liquefy all assets, go over and meet him or something. Be like, yo, what's up?
Yeah, good plan. Good plan.
I mean, it's not very well thought out, but
Well, it's all right. It's all
let's
right.
say I got a couple months to prepare, so I'll think of a plan then.
Okay.
I'm
All
very
right.
good at procrastinating.
I like that. What about you, Megan? How would it look different?
I agree with Kenny. Like, I feel like I would try to work on myself, but mostly I would try to work in people and try to get them to start seeing who he is and like start believing and try to help them on their walk, even though I'm not like, I'm on a walk with God and I'm not to the finish line yet.
Yeah.
I'm still in the hard parts.
It's called the
And-
middle.
Yeah. And so even though like I'm still on my walk with God, I want to try to lead people so they can either get close to the point I'm at or close to the point they want to be at or they're comfortable with. Because with people, I figured out you can't push them to believe. You have to go at their pace and try to get them to like, I mean, you can push them a little bit, just kind of help, give them the information, tell them what you think, and like let them see where you're at. And then it's their decision. It's not our decision.
That's right.
It's their decision to be able to decide if they want to walk with Christ or they want to just stand there. And like Jickle said, it's like a concert you wanting to go to. Like, you want to be there. Like, you're going to do anything you want to get there. But if someone else that's not their favorite artist, they're not going to want to be there. And so they're not going to try all this time and spend all this money on someone that they don't want to see. But you just got to give a little push or try and help in any way you can.
What about you, Josie? If you knew that Jesus was coming back December 20th of 2020, how would your life look different today?
At first, I would probably like freak out,
Honest.
but
Facts.
I guess I would definitely try to spend as much time in my Bible as I could, and I would really try to get my word out, and I would try to help friends that I knew were struggling, and I would try to just help those who haven't seen God in their life and give them kind of like a warning, kind of like, he's coming, so you might want to get your life in shape. But I would try to get them reading their Bible, even if they didn't want to. Like, sometimes you don't want to push somebody because you don't want to like put your faith and just shove it at them, like shove it down their throat. You don't want to do that because that's not leading them in faith. That's throwing faith at them. And I try to send people texts, and I'm like, hey, like, you don't have to, but church is today, and I would like for you to come. But if I find out that he was coming, I would be like, there's a little thing called a Bible. You might want to read it. Mm-hmm. And, like, I would just try to push a little bit harder to get them into their faith. But, I mean, if they don't want to trust, then that's not my issue. I'm not God, so.
That's right. But you'd be an encourager. You would really encourage people to come to Christ. You yourself, it sounds like you would go deeper, and it would get more real. It would get more serious for you in that way. So listen, I want to thank each one of our amazing Pursuit students for being up here and their courage just to speak God's truth. I want to invite you, if you're not a part of a student group, or maybe you are, we want to encourage you to join us each week. You can find us each week at 7 p.m. on YouTube at Pursuit Students. We have amazing worship, a message each week, but more importantly, we'd love for you to join us here. So if you are looking for something, maybe tonight, something that we said or these students said just hit you in a particular way, we want to talk with you. So if you didn't speak up in the chat tonight, if you didn't have a chance to reach out to us, drop us a DM on Instagram at pursuit.students. We want to get to know you. We'd love to have you come join us. We do have a studio audience on Wednesday mornings. We'd love for you to be a part of that. So listen, thank you for hanging out with us for just a little bit tonight. I want you to know that God is love. God loves you. He loves all of his children. And we just want you to know that here at Pursuit Students that we love you, and we can't wait, if we don't know you, to be able to meet you. And if we do, we can't